Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Esoteric. I got a fun and random episode for you guys this Saturday because I know what you're thinking. Video Game Esoteric are reviewing a new product. I never do it, I usually show you stuff from decades ago. But the new hotness is the 8BitDo Neo Geo CD Controller. And of course you know I pre-ordered two, one to test and one to take apart on camera. So consider this a review of the product, how it's made, and what it is good for. And just so you know, I buy these with my own money, nobody sent them to me, and I can say whatever I want about them. Because I absolutely love the Neo Geo. I've had a Neo Geo CDZ forever, and I've had multiple sets of Neo Geo CD pads in my collection, both that I have repaired and both that are stock. The fact that this exists is amazing, because I do consider the original Neo Geo CD pad to be one of the greatest controllers of all time, right up there with the Japanese Saturn controller. What we're going to do is take a look at what comes in the box, we're going to talk about the construction, we're going to do a full teardown and talk about the hardware, and then I'm going to give you my thoughts on how this works in-game and whether or not it is worth your money. As we take a look inside the box here, 8BitDo is always great with their packaging quality. I've got multiple controllers from them, and I have absolutely no complaints about the overall build quality. I will say right off the top, the plastics and the molding on this feel identical to an original Neo Geo CD controller. It is a high quality material. Now of course you get shoulder buttons, which never came on the Neo Geo CD pad, but we have the clicky gated thumbstick as well as the 4 buttons A through D in the appropriate colors. And if we compare it to an original Neo Geo CD pad right here, the color match is near identical. I think the brown might be off a shade or two, but you'll see on the original pad we had this nice clicky stick. And the one difference that I can tell right off the top between the two controllers is the play when you're just moving the thumbstick around before it starts to click is a little bit softer on the 8BitDo. I have no problems with it, but it is a slight difference. But you'll see here you have your start and select. They're black, not gray like the original controller, but honestly, who really cares about that? But it's this gated stick that makes the big difference outside of a few additional buttons. I love the design of the Neo Geo CD thumb pad. It is basically just an arcade stick condensed down into a quasi-analog controller. Now it is pure digital inputs, but it moves around almost like an analog to start until you get to those clicks. But the clicks are good, they are responsive in your hand, and the buttons hit and feel like an original Neo Geo CD controller as well. Now taking a look at the top shoulder buttons, they are fine. They have a nice click. I'll talk more about the construction when I get inside of the controller, but do be aware compared to the original stick, you do get a couple shoulder buttons which are going to be useful in some games depending on how you want to play, and then you will see there's just a sync button in the middle as well as that USB-C port. If we take a look around the back, this operates on 2.4 gigahertz wireless as well as Bluetooth, but it doesn't work every single way on every single console. I'll explain that in just a moment. Just don't think that it's going to be a good time to go Bluetooth into Windows. Your mileage 100% may vary. So if we take a look at the box here, Windows is 2.4 gigahertz wireless or wired USB, as is the Neo Geo Mini, and Android is going to be Bluetooth. I did not test this on any system that wasn't listed on the back of the box. I've seen a few complaints online that this controller doesn't work for something like a PlayStation 5. It's not advertised as working for it, so honestly no big deal in my opinion. And not advertised but perfect as MiSTer FPGA implementation, it just works. Let's take a spreader and pop that thumb cap off so we can get inside of the controller and see what the construction is made out of on the interior. I want to see what parts they've chosen and kind of get a sense of how they're functioning. That is always the fun part. You'll see here in the back there are 4 screws, and the good thing is they are all the same size. You do need a security bit to get into this, so if you don't have that you may need to order one, but honestly if your controller works, by no reason to open it up if you're not reviewing it on camera. But it's always great when companies use the same length screws so you don't have to worry about putting them in the wrong spot. Now on the back here you'll see that there is an unpopulated pad, a few simple chips, and as well as these shoulder buttons. Now these are just free floating PCBs with 2 wires soldered into the main PCB itself, and they do have a tendency to move. I have a feeling that if people really hammer on these shoulders, that could be a weak point in the future. I've got no evidence to say that is true, it just is how it feels in my head. When I see those board flex, I see the cables move and I see the cables wiggle on the solder joints. Maybe a year, maybe 5 years, maybe 10 years, maybe never. It might end up kind of getting to a cold joint situation, but it is very easy to repair. So honestly, more of just an observation, not a criticism. You'll see there how they kind of float around inside. But the meat of what is in here is a simple battery. It is rechargeable if you want to use it on wireless, but we're really here for the thumb stick. If we take a closer look, you're going to see those 4 different micro switches in there and how they articulate and move around as you move that thumbstick. It is a nice smooth flow between cardinal directions, north, south, east, and west, up, down, left, and right, to getting into the corners and doing diagonals. It doesn't seem to hitch or catch whatsoever, and that was one of my concerns because it is so important to have that smooth movement. If I can consistently pull off specials and Mark of the Wolves, I'm going to give that at least a thumbs up. And if we take a look at my custom arcade stick build here, made just for me, I absolutely love it. All the Neo Geo CD pad and the 8BitDo version is doing is condensing down the arcade stick to a thumbstick situation. It is just miniaturizing what you already have. And if you take a look inside of this stick here and take a look at the gate in there, it is also a square gate. That's what I prefer. And as I move the stick around, you see that it functions in the exact same manner that the Neo Geo CD pad does. And that is why so many people love the CD pad in and of itself. It's a small arcade stick under your thumb, because not everyone always wants to take their gigantic arcade stick out. And you'll see it moves exactly how it does on the arcade stick, except in a much smaller form factor. And these switches do feel like they are decent quality, but what I really love is the plastic quality on this controller. Both the controller itself as well as the buttons are deeply molded plastic. They are very rigid and they have an excellent feel in the hand. Very similar to the original Neo Geo CD controller in both texture, and the size is 1-to-1 identical, as are the colors, so I really just do love that. Now if we take a look inside the rest of the box, there's an instruction manual. I'm sure no one's ever going to read that, and we get 3 accessories as well. You're going to see here that we have that USB-C to A cable, we have the wireless adapter, and then we have a USB-A to USB Type-C adapter if you want to go into a system with USB-C. The only problem I have with everything in the box is that the USB-C to USB-A cable is much too short to actually use it when you're playing. It's only 38 inches long. I use my Nintendo Switch Pro Controller USB-C to A for my MiSTer captures, and that worked perfect, but if you actually want to use this as a wired controller, I would definitely get something newer. But moving over to Neo Geo and Garo Mark of the Wolves, I'm playing this one on my MiSTer FPGA, and I'm going to move over to Windows. I will let you know when. This plays exactly as it should. The controller is doing everything I need it to. It is functioning like a small arcade stick under my thumb, and I'm saying right now, at least for fighting games on Neo Geo, I absolutely love the new 8BitDo pad. Now I am playing wired. On the Windows example, I am going to go wireless, but for MiSTer, I always play my games hardwired in. It's just the way I prefer to do it. But I did test a little bit of wireless latency on Windows, and everything felt perfectly fine. If there's any more delay, it is not perceivable. You'll see here pulling out specials on Mark of the Wolves exactly as I remember it. And moving over to Melee here, my favorite game on the Neo Geo as far as fighting games are concerned, it's playing exactly as it would if I was using my custom stick or my modified Neo Geo Arcade Stick Pro via USB. We even got to see Chinnen's background right here. It's a very rare background in the game, only comes up like something like once every 50 gameplays, so it was even more fun to see that. But again, it's playing how it should, it's controlling how it should. I'm playing Melee as I would expect to, and I'm doing that all on the new 8BitDo Neo Geo CD pad. And taking a look at a shmup, it's always important to make sure that they are playing well. I absolutely love bullet hell shmups. If there's any lag in the controls, if the controls are dropping inputs, it is basically a guaranteed death. If you can't control it, you're not going to be able to navigate around. And again, this controller is performing so well. I think I would rather have an arcade stick in a bullet hell shmup just because I really like to hammer on the controls. But for those times that you don't have the desire to take your big arcade stick out, or if you don't have one, this is like a 99% as good solution. You see me navigating the bullet patterns here, all doing it under my thumb. I cannot do it this well on a D-pad that uses a membrane. Even the best D-pad around does not match that micro switched gate in the Neo Geo CD original controller or the 8BitDo replication. This is just how I love it. It is so good. It's making me so happy just to play around with this. Now moving over to Windows and testing compatibility there on Pro Gear, I find the exact same thing. It was extremely easy to set the controller up on Windows, and just be aware there is a firmware update that you can update out of the box. I tested it before and after the firmware update, and I didn't notice anything different whatsoever, but that does exist. But you'll see here, navigating around, dealing with all these bullet patterns with that thumbstick under my thumb, it's just 100% working. Now there's one thing I hate the controller for, but it's not the controller's fault. Let me make that very clear. It's not a criticism. I do not like playing Capcom 6-button games on anything other than a controller that has all 6 buttons in a line. I do not like using shoulder buttons to be able to play these games, but that is not what this controller is for. And like I said, I've seen some people talk about they don't like the fact that it doesn't work for all systems, or they don't like the fact that it uses shoulder buttons for some of the inputs. It is a controller made in the style of Neo Geo CD Controller, and what it is replicating is like 99% perfect compared to an original Neo Geo CD pad, and considering the fact that those break all the time, it is amazing to have a brand new construction Neo Geo CD pad on the market. I give this product a straight 10 out of 10. It's going to be my new go-to controller for MiSTer FPGA, all those arcade games and fighting games, unless I take my arcade stick out. If you have any questions, leave them down below, but run, don't walk, and go buy yourself one. Bye-bye.